how old are you?
35.
Do you think that there's going to come a day when this is going to be tired? And if it does come a day, do you think you're ever going to go the marriage route? Is that possible at this point?
So look, I'm a gambler, but I don't want to bet half my net worth I'm going to love the girl forever. But, it's that not to say that I wouldn't, have a girlfriend or, I'm capable of being monogamous. It's just, for me, it's more about options, really. Like, at the end of the day, like, it comes down to most guys are in relationships, I feel like, because it's either, hey, I'm going to jerk off on Saturday night, or I got to put up with her shit and I get laid, and it's like, and a lot of it's out of laziness, a lot of it's out of lack of options, whatever the case may be, but it's not correct. Like, for me, I think a correct relationship is a guy that could be fucking, 5 or 10 girls, and he chooses to hang out with this one girl because he likes her, he likes hanging out with her, and she hangs out with him because she enjoys his company. And regardless of what the reason is, because a lot of people are like, oh, that girl's a gold digger, or they want to hate on him. But at the end of the day, if a guy has made his money from, successful business and, being smart and he hasn't fucked it off, like, or he's a doctor or whatever, that to me is more of a part of who that guy is than a girl that's just born hot. So for a guy to like a girl just because she's hot, I feel like is like the most superficial thing of all time.
Well, I mean, she has to be nice, too. She can't, hopefully.
She does, but I'm saying a lot of guys are with a girl just because she's hot, and they don't really get as much shit as a girl that's with a guy because he's successful or because he has money.
It's true. It is true. It is true. Like, the guy who earned that money, it's his character and his willpower and his discipline that's allowed him, his smarts has allowed him to earn that money, or he just got lucky as fuck.
There's definitely some lucky ones, but you also have to hold on to it. You know, once you got money, you got every asshole and their mother with their hand out, trying to scam you, and it's easy to fuck it off or make bad investments or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it is. It is a funny little situation there, isn't it? Because like it's also the way women are allowed to dress. Even like a respectable woman is allowed to have her tits pressed together and pushed up, and she's allowed to have a skirt that's just like a little light vagina curtain, And that's really all it is. And little panties underneath and smooth legs and high heels. The whole thing is sex.
Well,
it's just selling lust.
Let's talk about bathing suits. I mean, the fact that every bathing suit now is basically a thong, and the fact that like a bathing suit shows more than like the most revealing underwear back in the day ever used to, right? Yeah. But it's like completely socially acceptable. Then on Halloween, they can wear even less than that.
They paint their
tits.
And it's
okay. Yeah, it's like literally butt naked.
They're allowed to wear paint.
Yeah.
When the fuck did paint become clothes? Imagine we put paint on our dick and went out. You get arrested, right?
Yeah.
Well, how come a girl can wear paint on her tits, but you can't wear paint on your dick? I want to know.
Yeah,
I want to know.
Well, it's a double standard.
It is a double standard. Nobody wants to see your dick painted up. That's why.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like American flag or something.
Yeah, I don't want to see a bunch of zebra dicks around either.
It is weird. There are weird double standards, but it's also people don't want to open their mouth because they don't want, first of all, they don't want anybody to think that they, like, why do women get to do this? And what are you complaining? Poor guy. You don't want to hear that. But it's also when men complain about the double standard in like marriage, like what you said, as far as it being a gamble, it's a terrible gamble for a wealthy man. It's terrible. Because like it's essentially a financial agreement. Yeah. It's not a love agreement.
Well, no, you're asking the government permission to be with a girl, and if you decide that you don't want to be with them, now you have to go ask the government, and then you have to get lawyers involved, and it's this whole process that, in my eyes, it makes both parties feel not both parties, because usually it's kind of like a magnet, like one is pushing a little bit further than the other, and it's so there's one kind of like always chasing or whatever. So for me, it just makes the party that's a little bit less invested just feel trapped. And when you're in a relationship and you feel trapped, the first thing you want to do is run, right? So you got this one person, that inevitably ends up feeling trapped, and the other person, kind of gets lazy or complacent. And I feel like it just snowballs. There's like a lot of momentum things, right? So if relationships just starts kind of going downhill and you're trapped in it because you're legally bound, I just feel like it's just going to get worse and worse, and the girl's going to stop giving the blowjobs, and the guy's going to resent it, and then maybe he cheats. You know what I mean? It's like this whole cycle that just wouldn't happen if you were hanging out because you wanted to hang out. Because let's face it, if you're hanging out with a chick and you like her and she's cool, and then she just decides to just completely let herself go and she turns into a fat ass, or she just like stops wanting to have sex with you, you're just going to fuck other girls, or you're just not going to hang out with her, right? But if you're married to her, you don't really have a choice. I mean, now you're kind of like, you got to ask the government permission and, this and that.
Yeah, you got to get lawyers involved. You live in the same place. You got to, it takes forever. You have to agree on terms, and you have to pay for her lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, how brutal is that? Like, you're like literally like trapped in the same house as the person. It's just like, fuck, man.
It can get crazy. It can get crazy, and I've seen it get crazy. I'm sure you have too. Yeah. When people get divorced, I mean, it is one of the most stressful things a person can go through in their life. And when you're working all day, and if she's not working, that's when it's really crazy. I had a buddy who was going through a divorce. His wife never worked. And he was working, 10, 12 hours a day, just busting his ass constantly at his own business. And she would be fucking off and doing whatever she wanted during the day. He had to pay for all that on top of paying for her lawyer. And her lawyer was trying to fuck him. And then he had to pay for his lawyer to battle her lawyer. And they all just dragged the whole thing out. It took over a year and a half for him to get divorced. So it's a year and a half, this poor bastard he's free now, but goddamn, but try to get him married now. He'll fucking shoot you in the face if you even bring up that word. It's like he went through it.
I mean, they have a term for it in gambling. It's negative free roll. It's where you can basically only lose. You have no upside. Like for instance, a negative free roll is like if I were to tell you, hey, if you can go bench press 300 pounds, I'll give you $10,000. Well, I just can't win anything. You know what I mean? Because if you can't do it, then I don't get anything. So it's kind of like, in my eyes, I just feel like it's a situation where you can just lose. It's kind of like my buddy, he got into a relationship and he just like dove in like super hardcore really fast. And I just told him, I said, look, like, I just feel like you don't have a lot of upside by doing that. Cause you can get hurt. And if you just take it slow, like worst case scenario, you just weren't quite as close for a month. But I said, if it doesn't work out, then now you invested, all this time and this effort. And it's like, and I feel like because he went so hardcore for this girl, it kind of like, sometimes it makes them run away a little bit because they know people, they just by nature want what they can't have, right? So if you just give it all to them immediately, then it's kind of like...
They're like, look at this bitch.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of like lose respect for you a little bit.
It can happen or it can be perfect. Relationships just have to be organic. That's what it really has to be. And as soon as you involve legal contracts, it's not organic anymore.
Exactly. Like I feel like once it starts to be forced in any way, then...
through way more of a hellacious physical test than most people could ever endure.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, a lot of people are like, oh, like, you must be a super tough motherfucker and all this other shit. And I think it comes down more to just like how bad you want it. Like in life, like if you just want something so fucking bad, like I just remembered like when I was doing the 50-meter underwater swim, it was really hard for me. I'd never been able to do it outside of, SEAL training. And the only 2 times I did it was when I like had to do it. And I just remembered, I was just like, well, I'm just going to swim until I fucking reach the wall or black out. Like there just wasn't another option. Like I just wasn't going to quit just because I wanted it so bad. So that actually helps you. I remember there's one guy that went into Buds and he was, he had like $1 million business. I think it was the guy that like owned Van Dutch or something maybe, or had some like affiliation with it. And I just remember.
And then he went into Buds after that?
I just remember he showed up and he had like a hot chick or 2 hot chicks and he had a sports car and everybody's just like, fuck, this dude's a stud. You know what I mean? Like it was like, and then he like showed up at Buds and ended up like quitting like straight away. And I was just like, but it didn't surprise me because I'm like thinking, if I don't make it, I'm going to a ship and I'm gonna be fucking miserable. Like I don't want that. Like this guy's thinking like if I quit, I can go like fuck a bunch of girls and like drive nice cars and I got money. Like you know what I'm saying? So like for him, it was like I actually think it's harder. Like because you look at like what your alternatives are. If you put a fucking guy up against the wall and he's got no choice, then he's just gonna like do what he's got to do. Like for instance, if I told you had to go crawl, 50 miles, or I'm gonna fucking put a bullet in your head, like you're probably gonna go crawl that 50 miles. But if I told you, hey, like I'm gonna give you $500,000. If you can go crawl these 50 miles, but, you got money and you don't really need it, you're probably not going to crawl 50 miles. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's kind of like one of those things. It's just like the alternative is what determines the difficulty.
Well, that's that great scene in Officer and a Gentleman. Remember Richard Gere?
Yeah.
Where he's I got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. And that's exactly it.
I got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
That's one thing I tell people when they're thinking about fighting. I say, is it all you want to do? Is it your whole life? Does it absorb you? Do you want that more than anything that you can imagine? It's not like, well, if fighting doesn't work out, I'm going to be an author. Because if that's the case and you want to do it for the experience, that's cool. But if you actually think you're going to be a champion, if you have all these other escape routes, it's not going to happen.
That's why I actually think it's harder for guys like Conor McGregor or guys like Mayweather, because now they have money and they have that lifestyle, and it's like that. I actually thought Ronda was going to get fucked up just because she was going to Hollywood. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's tough, she's fucking great, whatever. But she was like, she's doing the movies and she's doing this, and it's like I know that lifestyle, and I know the addictiveness of the money and the fame and all that other stuff. And now it's like these people that have been fucking, living in a 1-bedroom apartment are now introduced to all this money and all this fame and people. And it's so distracting, as opposed to the guy that's like, fucking waking up every day and going to the gym and fucking busting his ass and just trying to make ends meet. And that's all he's got. And he's got nowhere else to go, like you said,
Yeah.
And for that guy, I feel like it's far easier to stay the course. For a guy like Conor McGregor, now he's got all this money and this and that, he doesn't have to fight anymore. If he wants to continue his lifestyle, he does. Right now, he's like upped his expenses and his image and all this stuff, and he's used to all this stuff. So now he has to like make X to maintain his current situation. So he's got a little bit of pressure on him in that sense. But he's not struggling. He's not hungry anymore. You know what I mean? He's got the
Depends
belt.
on who you are, though. I mean, everybody has a different motivation. Some people, it's not even like they change the goalposts. Instead of becoming rich, it's become the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It's like you look at all these other guys that are nipping at your heels, and you decide, no, motherfuckers, I am the man at the top of the mountain, and I'm going to stay at the top of the mountain as long as my body hangs in there.
Yeah.
But again, it's like that has to be something that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see the shift. I see the shift in guys where they all of a sudden they do it for money and they start doing it for a living. You see that shift, and it's an ugly shift because they just don't have the same tenacity.
I feel like I see it a lot in like NFL and stuff like that.
I'm sure.
You
I
know,
mean, you probably get tired of getting your fucking bell rang too, man.
Yeah.
You get tired of bang, bang, clashing heads with people and running into each other. After a while, that shit gets tired.
Yeah, I remember there's a big basketball player, and he would play poker, and it was funny because he would go on these benders and he would play for like 24 hours straight, or sometimes I just remember we just always bet against him. And he was like a big like basketball player, like he was like the star on the team or whatever. And so we would just like always bet against like whatever team he was playing. If he had been playing poker for 24 or 48 hours, we'd just bet against the other team. We were right like almost every time. Like he just like always played like shit.
Probably exhausted.
Yeah, fuck yeah. It's like mentally exhausting. He's not sleeping. You don't eat. It's just hard on your body. You secrete the cortisone or whatever, cortisol levels that got to go up. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's
that balancing act, I think, in anything in life, but especially in risky things, whether it's playing poker or fighting or anything along those lines, something that's really difficult to do. There's this weird balancing act, and you have to achieve this perfect balance of motivation, reward, intensity, focus, discipline, but still pleasure. You can't be miserable forever. Like, there's got to be a time where you have fun, too.
It's hard. I mean, like I said, I think it just comes down to, like, you just got to want it. You know? You just got to fucking just want it really bad.
Well, there was some study recently that I was reading about where they were talking about how you can't be happy all the time. And you don't want to be happy all the time. Like, literally, you won't achieve the same levels of happiness all the time if you're not miserable. Like, you don't ever hit those highs unless you hit those lows. Like, you ever been around someone who's manic? You ever date a chick who's manic?
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like, the sweet is never as sweet without the bitter. And it's like, and I've found that, I actually have an interesting outlook on that because I bought pleasure for so long. You can't buy happiness. You can buy pleasure, though. A lot of people say, like, oh, money isn't happiness. Well, money can buy a boat, and a boat will make me fucking happy, that kind of thing. Right? So an example I like to give is, when I was 16, like, my dream car was a Mustang Cobra, right? So if I got a Mustang Cobra, I would have been at a 10, right? But a Ferrari would also bring me to a 10. I mean, but you can't go higher than a 10, right? So let's just say that I got the Ferrari when I was 16, and now we flash forward, I graduate college, and my dad gives me let's say he gives me a BMW M5. If I had the Ferrari, now I'm going to be kind of like probably at a 7, right? Because I'm stepping down in a car. But if I had the Mustang Cobra and now I'm going to an M5, I'm going to be back at a 10. Well, it's the same car. You're the same person. You're at the same spot in life. The only difference is your perspective because of your previous experience.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of like when, you know, people ask like why rich people aren't as happy. And I just think it's because they've upped the bar so far that only the, you know, best things satisfy them. Like a guy off the street, if I took, like when I got out of boot camp, I'll use that as an example. I go to Outback Steakhouse, I'm at a 10, right? Now, if I go to the best restaurant in the fucking world, I mean, I'm like maybe at like a 6 or a 7. I'm just like satisfied. I got 3 chefs. Like I eat the best food all the time. You know what I mean? So like that doesn't make me happy anymore. Like if somebody bought me a Lamborghini, I'd be like, whatever. Like I've had them. I don't care. Like, but if you get, you know, give it to a guy off the street, he'd be at a 10. So I can't buy happiness anymore. You know what I mean? I bought every fucking thing that I ever wanted, right? There's not really anything that I want. So I can't buy any like pleasure. And also, if you gave me like a regular car or put me in a regular hotel, I would actually be at like below the normal level, whereas a normal person would be like happy to be on a vacation. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that has like some correlation. Like, it's kind of like a guy that wins a lotto. Like a year later, he is like statistically less happy than a guy that got his leg fucking amputated a year prior. You know?
That's interesting. It's also, I think, what are you trying to do? Like, there are a lot of people that are trying to get rich because they think that once they get rich, they'll be happy.
Yeah.
They think that that's going to give them this thing that they've always been missing. And so they've been working hard, busting their ass, and they look at all these other people like we're talking about, you know, you land your private jet, you drive your Bentley to the club, and everybody's like, oh, it's Dan Bilzerian. You want to be that guy, right? But once you're that guy, it's like that doesn't mean anything anymore. And then for a lot of people, there's this emptiness. There's nothing left to chase. There's nothing else to do, and your life is just about possessions and upping the ante. And now I got to get a yacht, and now I have to get the biggest yacht. Now I got to buy an island.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to find something to fill that void because you've sort of set your life up to chase these material goals instead of to try to find out what actually does make you happy.
Yeah, you have to have goals, and you have to have stuff that, like, you know, you got to be climbing the mountain, because at the end of the day, like, climbing the mountain is far more satisfying than being at the top of the mountain, you know? Like,
isn't that weird, though? That's like not what we've ever been taught.
Well, it's counterintuitive because most people don't like get that. They just know that, like, okay, like, you know, my dad told me, like, it's better to give than receive. And I was like, okay, that's perfect, motherfucker. You can just give me shit and I'll receive it and I'll be happy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
but you don't have it. If you don't have it, then that makes sense.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like, you know, it just people, I mean, it's just experience. Like, I mean, like, from the time you're a little kid, you get something, you're happy. Like, you know, you get a boat, you're happy. Like, if I have this bike, I'm gonna be happy. And it's true and it works, you know what I mean? But there's a point, you almost have to like get really rich to understand that. You really have to just buy all that shit. Realize, okay, like, I got it all. It's cool. That made me happy, but it's temporary. You know, that's kind of where I differentiate the happiness and the pleasure. You know, you can buy the pleasure, but the pleasure is somewhat short-lived, you know?
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone about this recently where I was saying that material possessions, once you have enough money to acquire basically everything you want, they don't mean anything anymore. So they don't mean anything. You can enjoy them when you have them, but if you lose them, it's really not that big a deal. You know, if you get an Escalade and some fucking meteor hits your Escalade and you go out there, oh, just get another Escalade. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. But if that was all you had and you had to save and scrape up your money to get that Escalade and you kept it clean, then it got hit by a meteor, you'd be devastated.
Yeah.
Once you have achieved this level of success where material possessions don't mean anything anymore, then you can kind of like say, okay, well, what do I enjoy? Camaraderie, friendship, creativity. Like, what is it that I'm actually chasing? Because I remember talking to this Buddhist monk. I did this thing once where I went to all these different religions. It was for this TV show, and I interviewed all these different people and asked them, like, what is it about your religion that's the best? Like, say if I was going to join your religion, you'd try to sell me your religion.
Yeah, sell me.
And the Buddhist guy was saying that sex and all these material possessions, they possess you. And that to be completely free, you have to be abstinent and you have to be free of material possessions. I said, well, why? I go, what if you achieve a level of success where you don't worry about those things anymore, and they don't contain you, they don't hold you, you're not a prisoner of them because you're really not worried about them. Like, if all you had was this one thing and that one thing was taken from you, that would be devastating. And that's what this is based on. Mm-hmm. But what if you had unlimited resources? If you were Richard Branson or someone like you or whatever, when it's not an issue. Then those material possessions no longer possess you. But this guy didn't want to look at it that way. Like, he didn't want to think that that was ever possibly an option. I'm like, well, it's not an option because you don't think it's possible to achieve that level of material possession or that material success.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I feel like you have to get to that place to understand it. You know, it's kind of like...
But try telling that to anybody who's listening to this.
Yeah.
Like 99.9% of people listening to this are never going to make a fraction of the amount of money that you've earned.
Yeah, but, you know, in some ways that is a blessing because they're going to have a lifetime of being able to buy that pleasure too because of that, you know, because if you start here on this lower rung, then all those little purchases and stuff like that, you're still like, you're kind of
enjoying the shit out of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, so their baseline is just lower.
Right. They get a new fishing rod, they're fucking pumped.
Exactly. You know, and when that wears off, then they're going to, you know, get a new reel. And, you know, when that wears off, they're going to, you know, buy a new depth finder. What, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the little shit, that little shit, if it makes them happy, then that's okay. But
to the people listening to this right now, they're thinking, okay, well, you're equating material possessions and the acquisition of these material possessions as being the thing that makes people happy. Now, is this because you've got 15 bitches and you're flying around on, you know, private jets and yachts and you're lacking like real depth to you? You're a smart guy. You're not a dumb guy. So I don't think that that's the case. I think you're having a lot of fun and you're doing a lot of wild, crazy shit, but I don't think you're lacking in depth.
Yeah, no, I am just trying to fully experience everything that I wanted to experience. And there's also a part of me that's, you know, kind of doing some wish fulfillment, some part of me that's overcompensating for lack of things, you know, that I had, you know, childhood wise or when I was growing up or that I wanted or whatever. It's basically just like kind of like whatever I wanted when I was younger or whatever I placed emphasis on, I kind of like just over exaggerated and beat it into the fucking dirt. So then now I can move on and do something else. Like my life, you know, I have ADD. So for me, it's like hyper focus.
Is that even real?
I think it is. I think it is. And I think a lot of successful people have it. And I think what it allows you to do is when you are focused on something and when you have that like pinpoint focus, you can be extremely successful. But when you don't, you're just scattered all over the fucking map and you can't, you know, accomplish anything. I mean, you're just like, and I think a lot of kids have it nowadays because of the stimulus. I think you have so much stimulus at your fingertips nowadays that these kids, if they're not, I guess what I'm trying to say is that people are just overstimulated and because they have it at their fingertips all the time, like when I was a kid, like we used to just like have to entertain ourselves. We used to just like go out and play, you know, and just like figure out shit to do. And so we didn't need massive amounts of stimulus. Nowadays, if kids don't have a fucking video game and a movie playing at the same time, they're bored and three other friends to talk to. You know, so it's
they're hanging out and they're constantly checking their phone. They're not even looking at each other.
No, yeah, and I'm victim of it too. You know, it's crazy. You'll be in a social setting and there'll be 5-6 people at a table and they'll all be on their phones, and it's just like it's kind of sad that we've been reduced to that level of interaction where it's just like. Like it's just all electronic, and people, you know, like, I mean, when people call people nowadays, it's just like, wait, what the fuck? Like, why are you calling me? Like back when we were kids, like there wasn't even texting, you know, it was like flip phones. Like now it's like if somebody calls you, it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, you know.
I have one friend, Joey Diaz. We never text each other ever. He might have texted me once. I was like, what the fuck is going on? All we do is call. He goes, I don't like to text. He goes, I like to call. I want to hear your voice. I'm insecure. I want to know you love me. Like he wants to talk to you on the phone. Yeah. I think that's, we're definitely missing something. We're definitely missing something by all this electronic shit. But it's also like a new style of living. And I'm sure humans will adjust eventually. We'll figure out how to manage it or change accordingly.
The one positive thing I think is just that you're so connected. You know, I feel like everybody's more connected now. Like back, you know, when we were kids, like, you know, a guy in Idaho is never going to fucking, you know, feel any connection whatsoever with somebody that's, you know, in California. But now, like, that guy can upload a YouTube video and everybody around the world can see it. And people are just, you know, dating wise, social media wise, like whatever, there is more connection. I mean, I feel like it's not quite as real and it's not as tangible, but, and people I think are also losing their ability to kind of like interact. Like my older friends, like we'll sit around, we'll tell stories, and it's like we'll have fun, and it's like the younger generation, when you watch them interact, it's almost like comical. It's like these people, they're like socially awkward. Like they don't, like people don't know how to like approach girls anymore. It's just like, and the whole thing's been like reduced to like online dating. It's just, you know, it's a new world for sure. I mean, I don't know.
It is a new world, but what I found really fascinating is that, because I travel a lot doing stand-up, is that there's no dumb places anymore. Like you can go to, you know, fill in the blank, some place in the middle of the Midwest, Boise, Idaho, or whatever, and you'll do a show there, and the fucking people are on the ball. They know what the fuck's going on. They're so much more informed. When I used to travel on the road in the 90s, when I used to do stand-up in the 90s, and, you know, fly into Ohio, or, sorry, Jamie, fly into some place in the middle of the country, those fucking people were apes. I mean, they didn't know anything. They were like, what's it like to be on an airplane? I mean, they fucking didn't know anything. No one. But now it's like you run into the same kind of people in L.A. that you can run into in, you know, fill in the blank, you know, Phoenix or whatever, wherever the fuck it is. There's no dumb cities anymore.
Yeah.
You're still going to find some dumb people, but I think overall the awareness level of people has changed.
And I think that's, you know, a lot due to the internet. You know,
100%.
just that access. I mean, when I was a kid, if I wanted to know something, my mom's like, okay, look it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And I'm like, fuck that. You know, like, I'm not going to do that. And we literally would have like hundreds of encyclopedias around the thing. And like, and, you know, we thought that was great. But now it's like, you want to know something, you Google it, and you just instantly know it. Like
you don't even have to press it. You just talking to your phone.
You don't have to type.
You know?
Yeah, you just ask Siri. It's like so crazy.
Yeah, Google Cold Fusion. Blip. Just shows you instantaneously. I mean, it's so freaky that they didn't even think about it in Star Trek or Star Wars. None of those places had the internet. None of those visions of science fiction in the future had the internet. I think it's going to be, when history is all said and done, when people look back in this era, I think it's going to be one of the biggest changes in the human race ever. And we're in the middle of it. It's a storm, and we're just caught up in it. And like you were talking about when you were saying how you're so wealthy and it's just normal. It just becomes normal to you to have all this money, and someone gives you a Lamborghini. It's normal. Well, this wealth of information is normal to us. It just seems normal. You know, and, you know, my kids are young. They're growing up with the internet their whole life. They've never experienced anything but the internet. So it's, to them, they're not going to know how weird it was to run into bullshit artists.
Yeah.
You know, people just lied about stuff. Like, you couldn't Google them, you know?
Now you can just, like, if you want to know about somebody, you fucking Google them, and it's like, okay, this guy's a scam artist. This, you know, this chick's a hooker. It's just like, you just got their life story. It's like, bam, like Wikipedia. I mean, whatever. It's just, it's kind of crazy.
And it's something about being below a mountain and lying down and looking up and seeing the mountain and seeing the air and seeing the clouds go, where it just set into my mind like, whoa, that's an atmosphere. This isn't just the sky. This is like, so from that moment on, I can look up at a mountain now and I get this like weird, almost like half trippy feeling.
That's one thing that I've heard actually about a lot of psychedelics, is that it not like, it doesn't like rewire you, but it just makes you think about certain things differently. And I think that they explained that there's like some chemical thing where it kind of like almost like resets you to like where you can have a new perspective on certain things. That's one of the things that I was considering doing acid at Burning Man this last year. Because I've heard from a lot of people that it's like, it's a more like clean form of the mushrooms, and they kind of like got more out of it. And I had like 10 people tell me that it was like the best experience of their life. And so that's like a pretty strong statement to have 10 people tell you that. So
yeah, I did it this year for the first time. It's I don't know, I wouldn't say it's like it's powerful. I mean, they're all amazing. They all have their own little thing that goes on with them. But the changing of perspective is really beneficial to people that have addictions. Mm-hmm. Like apparently people that smoke cigarettes, like they'll have a powerful mushroom trip and they don't have any desire to smoke cigarettes anymore. It's a really common experience. Drug addicts, and, you know, even people that probably have other weird addictions, like gambling addictions or sex addictions. Like,
yeah, like I said, I think I had a small experience like that with the sex thing on the mushrooms, and it was like pretty liberating.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, they get trapped in the momentum of the life that they're in, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes psychedelic trips, or, you know, sometimes for people, it's just a near-death experience. You almost drown, and you don't drown. You get out of there, and you're like, holy shit, I got to rethink my whole life. And it just changes who you are, like the reset.
Yeah, I mean, I've preached this for a long time. I think just so much of your life is just perspective. I mean, it really is. And I you know, a lot of times I have these crazy parties. I'll invite disabled veterans out or whatever and try and show them a good time. And this one time I had this one guy who got both his legs blown off in Afghanistan, and super cool dude, like really humble, nice guy. And there was this like super hot chick that was at the party, and I really wanted to fuck her, but I was like, I'll see if I can get her to fuck him. And I paid her a fucking ton of money, which is kind of fucked up. She ended up fucking this guy, and I was fucked up, and I ended up passing out, and I forgot about it. And the next day we're sitting there at breakfast, and I was just like, I was so fucking miserable. And I look over at this dude, and I'm just like, you know, like, what the fuck are you so happy? He's like smiling and eating his shit, and I was like, well, you know, I'm hungover. I'm like, what the fuck are you so happy about? You know, he's like, shit, man. He's like, I feel great. I'm like, you're not hungover? He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't give a shit though. And I'm just like, dude, I gotta ask you, man. I'm like, you got the fucking best attitude. I was like, since you've been here, I was like, you've always been fucking positive. I was like, you know, is that ever like, you know, did you ever have moments where you're just like fucking depressed about, you know, the fucking amputation or any of that stuff? I was like, does that fuck with you? I was like, how do you maintain such a good attitude? I was like, I think it's amazing. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, losing my leg is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'll just never forget it, because that statement was just like so like different from what I ever expected this guy to say, right? And he followed it up with, you know, if that never happened to me, he's like, I'd be over in fucking some sand pit in Afghanistan. I'd just be another number. Nobody'd give a shit about me. He goes, and then when I came home, he's like, I'd just be, you know, a fucking military guy, and everybody in my town wouldn't care. And he's like, now, he's like, I go and I motivate people and I give these speeches. He goes, and people look up to me, and I'm inspiring people. He's like, and I get to do cool shit. I just got a fucking brand new rifle the other week for free. He goes, the military's paying me. He goes, I'm fucking partying here with you. I fucked a super hot chick last night. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, that's good. And then it was just like funny though, because like his whole thought process about it was so great. And I could just see how another guy, if that happened to him, could easily like get into like the woe is me and the whole like, you know, fuck this, you know, I'm depressed, and, you know, think about it all the time. Like, how could this have gone, you know? But this guy just like accepted it, fucking charged with it. And I was just like, he viewed it as like a huge positive. And I thought that was great. I don't know if you've ever seen, they got this YouTube thing. It's like the story of the Chinese farmer. You ever seen that?
No.
So he loses his horse, and everybody in the town comes over and they say, oh, well, that's terrible. And he's like, and they're like, oh, well, that's terrible now, isn't it? And he's like, maybe. And then the next day, 7 wild horses come back, and they all come over and they say, oh, well, that's great. And he says, well, maybe. And the next day, his kid has taken out one of the wild horses and breaks his leg, and the whole town comes over and they say, oh, that's terrible now, isn't it? He says, maybe. And the next day, the conscription officers come over, and they're, you know, taking people into the military to go fight. And they pass by his son because he's got a broken leg. And the whole town comes over and they say, you know, and they say, oh, that's great now, isn't it? And he says, maybe. And the point of it is that you never really know if something is bad or good, because you don't know how that's going to affect the rest of your life. Like back, you know, when I'm 2 days before graduating SEAL training, I've done 510 days of it. I've put my fucking heart and soul into this fucking thing, and I get kicked out because some fucking guy doesn't like me. And, you know, it's kind of hard to look at that in any way other than, oh, well, that's fucking terrible. But as I'm older and I've experienced a lot, I can look at that and be like, well, half my class died, right, in combat. So I could have fucking died. If I would have became a Navy SEAL, then that might have just been like what I hung my hat on, you know? And I was just like, for the rest of my life, I didn't feel like I really needed to fucking prove anything or excel or do anything, because I've done this thing that everybody views as great. And, you know, I don't know if I would have been as motivated. And so there's just like a lot of things like that in your life that in the short term, you look at them as being extreme negatives, or, you know, something that you even view as positive, that, you know, it's just hard to say until, you know, it's kind of like run its course and you see what effects that has later on down the line.
We're going to end it with some deep shit, Dan Bilzerian. I knew I'd get some deep shit out of you. I knew it was in there, God damn it.